My husband Charlie wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life. That young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it's what Christ did, and it's what Charlie would do. Mrs. Erica Kirk, 21 September 2025.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where you can't spell bastard without T-A-R-D. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Glad to have you with us tonight. And we open with a special programming note. The Golden Age of Western Civilization News Roundup will be once again preempted this week so that we can bring you this special edition of the Worst People in the Whole Wide World Weekly Update. And speaking of being preempted, we open with the case of James Christian Kimmel, age 57, of Malibu, California, by way of New York, New York. If you've never heard of Mr. Kimmel, and you didn't know before this week that he hosts an alleged comedy show called Jimmy Kimmel Live on the ABC television network, a subsidiary of the Disney Grooming Syndicate, well, that's because, like nearly all of the other people in North America, you don't watch Jimmy Kimmel Live. How do we know nearly everyone in North America doesn't watch Jimmy Kimmel Live? Well, because it's been averaging a 0.16 nightly rating over the course of the last calendar year, which, for those fans keeping score at home, is an even more dismal number than the 0.18 that the Late Show starring Steve Colbert has been averaging in the same time period. And to put matters in perspective, the Steve Colbert Show already got itself canceled a couple months ago for having ratings that are so far down the shitter they don't even begin to offset the 8-figure salary of the host and the 7-figure salaries of the room full of alleged comedy writers it apparently takes to come up with the tiresome third-rate codswallop that he vomits out each night during his opening monologue. So, to sum it up a different way, you might say Mr. Kimmel was already walking a bit of a thinner line than he seemed to realize. You might say Mr. Kimmel's employers and a good many of ABC's local affiliates were already on the lookout for a good excuse to make his show go away, which he very conveniently provided for them on Monday night this week when he opened his alleged comedy monologue by brazenly insinuating that Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, you know, the militant homosexual who cohabitates with his trans furry lover and writes Antifa slogans all over his shell casings, is actually a conservative Republican and a card-carrying member of something that he, Mr. Kimmel, refers to as the MAGA gang, which evidently is some sort of successor organization to the Gas House Gang, the Purple Gang, the Over the Hill Gang, the Gridiron Gang, the Apple Dumpling Gang, the gang that couldn't shoot straight, the Doberman Gang, the T-Bird Gang, the Dirt Gang, and in fact, the Bikini Chain Gang. But wait, cry Mr. Kimmel's defenders, and let's just call them the Jimmy Gang since we can play this game too. According to the Jimmy Gang, their man Mr. Kimmel wasn't actually being serious when he said all that stuff. He was just doing a satirical setup line for the next joke in his act, to which a normal person with a functioning soul might say, "You're actually serious right now? That's your explanation? That he was making a joke about a man being murdered in broad daylight in the presence of his wife and his young children? That's supposed to make it all okay? That's what you came up with." And yes, the galaxy brain intellectual masterminds who came up with this explanation are, nearly all of them, Democrat elected officials and alleged journalists for various fake news media sludge factories, all of whom, it should be said, are orders of magnitude more upset about Jimmy Kimmel being pulled off the air than they ever were about Charlie Kirk being fatally shot by a trans furry-loving homosexual for the dastardly crime of attempting to have a civil dialogue with some college students. CNN's Jake Tapper, noted paragon of hard-hitting journalistic rigor, ran straight to Steve Colbert's big, comfy couch, because of course he did, to whine that, well, if you can't criticize our leaders, then we're not the USA anymore. Democrat members of Congress, including noted incest practitioner Ilhan Omar of Minnesota and noted Chinese spy copulator Eric Swalwell of California, who can't go on CNN anymore because his big juicy farts are just too darn loud, ran straight to their favorite America-hating, violence-promoting leftist podcasts to declare that Trump is an authoritarian fascist, which is the same thing they were saying last week, and the week before that, and the week before that. If one didn't know better, one might suspect they were human versions of a magic 8-ball, where you give them a good hard shake and they say one of 5 things, and Trump is an authoritarian fascist is 3 of them. The other 2 being, you're a racist, and please send me money to help save our democracy, or something. And speaking of America-hating, violence-promoting leftist podcasters, they have also been doing the type of yeoman's work these past 10 days that befits a well-earned entry in the Worst People in the Whole Wide World Weekly Update. Or, if you prefer the shorthand acronym, the WPWWWU, which, in our own defense, is still less awkward and unwieldy than saying LGBTQIA EIEIO 2S+, #*, divided by sign, and whatever the hell else they have added this month to cover all of the newly invented sex perversions being dreamed up at your local state university for the low, low price of $80,000 per year per student, each of whom will graduate not knowing how to read or do basic arithmetic. I'm thinking specifically of execrable, cretinous douchebags like Stephen Bunnell, stage name Destiny, and Hassan Piker, nephew of the similarly cretinous, America-hating, violence-promoting leftist podcaster Cenk Uygur. Is it Uyghur or Iger? Have we ever had a final ruling on how to pronounce that big sweaty asshole's name? The reason I ask is because I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, because I know that would cause him to go into a frothing, apoplectic rage and loudly scream abusive profanities at anyone in his general vicinity, which, to be fair, is the same way he reacts to most things. Now, if you've had any sort of passing of familiarity with the America-hating leftist YouTube ecosphere over the course of the last 5 or 10 years, you already know that these room temperature IQ neo-Marxist dipshits are some of the most widely followed live streamers in that particular cosplay revolutionary fever swamp corner of the internet. I won't call them content creators, because turning on a camera and a microphone and whining for a couple of hours about how you want all Republicans to be violently killed while gullible, low-information adolescents fall all over each other sending you their parents' money is not something I'm willing to call content creation. But this was the week that the normies out in flyover country, people in the real world with real lives, I believe they're called, first started being aware of their antics. And the normies are not much pleased. Much like the owners of the Disney ABC grooming syndicate, the owners of the various video sharing platforms are now being bombarded from all corners with some very inconvenient questions that they would rather not be asked. Questions like, why is this person with this huge following allowed to openly advocate for political violence and murder on your platform, and then to celebrate it when it happens totally without sanction on your part? Isn't advocating and celebrating murder rather wildly contrary to your site's terms of service? Do you choose to look the other way simply because their targets happen to be Donald Trump and people who support Donald Trump? Would you allow that sort of behavior or anything remotely resembling it from any non leftist streamer? Did you take a similarly hands off approach 4 and 5 years ago with people who raised objections to the government's public health policies? Or did you banhammer them without a moment's hesitation? Well, it turns out those owners are going to have the opportunity to answer those very same questions and then some 2 weeks from tomorrow on the 8th of October when they are hauled before the House Oversight Committee to explain themselves. And I trust you don't need this reporter to tell you that when social media executives are hauled before House Oversight, it never goes very well for the social media executives, notwithstanding the best efforts of the Democrats on said committee to run interference on their behalf. And you know, here at the offices of the WPWWWU, we would be remiss in our stated duties if we didn't give a special shout out to the current governor of California, a greasy, slimy, gravel-throated creature by the name of Gavin Christopher Newsom, who decided this weekend, of all weekends, would be a splendid time to issue thinly veiled threats in the direction of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, which he did yesterday when his social media accounts blasted out the ominous sounding message, quote, Kristi Noem is going to have a bad day, end quote. A message that is strikingly similar, both in tone and in substance, to a series of messages posted by the associates of Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin in the days leading up to his murder, when they said things like, Charlie Kirk is going to have a bad day on September 10th. Is there even the slightest possibility that the governor of the nation's most populous state, a sophisticated political operator like Gavin Newsom, didn't know that echoing those messages was exactly what he was doing? No, there is not. So we now live in a world, and what a joyous world it is, where governors issued terrorist threats towards sitting members of the president's cabinet, because Mr. Newsom thinks it is offensive that Mrs. Noem plans on apprehending criminals in the state of California, which is, after all, her job, and he wants to frighten her away from doing that. If there is anything we know about Gavin Newsom, we know that he wants very, very badly to be the next president of the United States. How does he imagine that issuing terrorist threats to presidential cabinet secretaries gets him closer to that goal? Well, I can't say. But I am sure the Secret Service will ask him that very question during his interview tomorrow, as the U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California has referred the matter for investigation, as well he ought to have done. And I want to close this edition of the WPWWWU by giving a special shout out to the members of the Antifa, Trantifa, BLM rage mob who have been issuing threats against the venue at which Charlie Kirk's memorial service took place this afternoon, who have been attempting these past few days to infiltrate the venue while wearing stolen law enforcement uniforms, and who have been staging angry protests outside of the stadium. Because losing all capacity for self-awareness can be a hell of a thing. I'm sure some of the kids doing the threatening and the infiltrating and the protesting are too young to remember the events of 15 or 20 years ago, so the duty falls to this reporter to offer them this little pearl of perspective and wisdom. You know what we used to call people who protested funerals? We called them the Westboro Baptist Church. And every single person in the country of every political stripe and persuasion and every religious affiliation or lack thereof agreed that they were a bunch of morally reprehensible asshole savages. I am done. That's all I've got. This has been the Worst People in the Whole Wide World Weekly Update. I now transmit you into the loving care of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the one and only Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Tonight, I watched Thunderbolts. And we're going to get into this whole thing because somebody needs to. Somebody needs to go right up their snooker because this can't continue. You can't keep making this can't continue, bro. Where do you want to start tonight? Can we start with the Thunderbolts? Because
we might as well because I watched it too since you made me. I didn't have much of a choice.
I didn't leave you choices.
This man to my left held a gun to my head and made me watch this god-awful MCU movie, even though I thought I had stopped watching MCU movies. But every time I think I'm out, they drag me back in, as Al Pacino might say.
All right, so we both watched the film, and we both kind of had the same opinion of it at the end. Was like, what did I just watch? What was that actually about?
What was that movie about?
So the tagline is the New Avengers, right?
Yes.
Why are all the New Avengers criminals?
That is an excellent question. And one can't help noticing that the New Avengers are decidedly less exceptional than the original Avengers. And I guess that's what happens when you do an inferior cosplay version of a previous much better thing, which could also be said for the actual movies themselves, I suppose, couldn't it?
Sure. So the super soldier serum, it's not a secret anymore. Apparently just any old body can whip themselves up a good old super soldier any old time they're ready. There's at least 3 representations of people who are derived directly from the super soldier program.
Yes, and evidently since the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier series and the start of this film, John Walker, the bargain basement second version of Captain America, took the super soldier serum, as we learn when he falls from a very great height and is not killed in the opening sequence of the film. And we've got Red Guardian, who took some sort of Soviet version of the super soldier serum, and we've also got our old friend Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, who is a congressman from New York now, apparently. So good for him. And he washes his mechanical Wakandan arm in the dishwasher. Go ahead.
I want a piece of that because it's not every day that you elect a previous foreign asset. I don't think.
Yeah, a man who has assassinated numerous foreign heads of state in his life, but I was just brainwashed. It's a pretty weird thing to do, to elect a person like that who's, what is he, like 117 years old now, and he looks like a 40-year-old.
Yeah, and I don't see how that makes no sense to me. And in universe that is completely unbelievable. There's no possible way that Bucky Barnes gets elected to Congress. I don't see that being a thing. Hero, not, whatever, doesn't matter. Homeboy was literally the prime assassin for the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, they in the Winter Soldier movie, didn't they say he had 50-something kills in his career or something along those lines? So yeah, that's a hell of a thing to elect a man like that to Congress. But and the thing that baffles me about that particular detail is that the movie doesn't have any need for him to be a congressman.
No,
and he is only briefly depicted in that role. And the plot, such as it is, doesn't require him to have assumed that sort of station. So it's only one of the many baffling things that occurred to me after I watched this movie. And if you held a gun to my head 90 seconds after I finished watching it and asked me to give you a synopsis of the plot, I would have to be shot because I don't think I could have done it.
Okay, so the plot surrounds this concept of there having been a not a super soldier program, but like a Captain Marvel copy program or something like that.
Oh God, not sure. Captain Marvel.
I'm not sure where the source of the Sentinel's power comes from, but he's basically
just the sound of the words Captain Marvel makes me want to cringe, which I guess is also Brie Larson's default facial expression. So that's rather fitting on some level.
But I'm trying to align a power level of the enemy of the big bad in this movie, who is, by the way, named Bob. And
Yes.
Bob has no idea what's going on. Bob is the byproduct of some previous Oscorp functioning that he's literally a loose end that wasn't wrapped up.
And you mentioned the power levels of the various heroes, and that seems to be another thing that has gotten rather, let's call it, fungible. It seems like the power levels of the respective characters are whatever the particular scene needs the power levels to be. And we need to talk about, should we talk about the problems with the dialogue in these late period
Oh,
MCU pictures? Because here's the theory that I was espousing to you when we were talking about it yesterday. Marvel has a very serious problem with the way they are writing the dialogue in these pictures now, because they are effectively trying to write every character as if they are Tony Stark, and all of the dialogue is just quippy and funny and meta, and that creates a very serious problem. When you are in universe, you have very serious events going on, but none of the characters in the film are taking the events seriously. That creates a rather severe tonal disconnect, and it interferes with the ability of the viewer to suspend their disbelief, as you need the viewer to do if they are going to appreciate the picture you're trying to make. And not every character can be Tony Stark. When you made the first Avengers and there was only one Tony Stark, and he was saying the kind of lines that a person might say if they were a normal person observing these events from outside, but all of the other characters were talking as if they were actually in this universe and taking the events in the universe seriously. You can't have every character in the film talking that way, because it just makes a mockery of the whole proceedings after a certain point.
it really does. The primary dialogue issue I have is every single character tries to be the funny, offhand, fourth. Oh, wow. Do I have two coffees?
You impatient asshole.
I'm sorry.
Send I.
I didn't know. Thank you, Wife Squatch. I'm sorry. My coffee has arrived.
Yes, it's as if all of the characters are only concerned with trying to out-zinger and out-one-liner each other.
Exactly. And that's okay. So let's do a microcosm here. Bucky Barnes. Bucky Barnes was an asshole before he became the super soldier, the Winter Soldier, right? He was a superior dickhead because he was superior. He was 6'4", 6'5", 280 pounds, built a country boy splitting wood type physique. He was everything the military wanted.
But for reasons that were never explained, he was best friends with sickly little skinny tiny Steve Rogers.
I don't even have a problem with that. I'm fine with that. I mean, everybody has a pet. I don't know what to tell you.
It's true.
But
and sometimes your pet is a grown man with a giant head on the body of an 11-year-old.
Sure, okay. And like I said, I don't have a problem with it. That's fine. That's the story. That's the way it plays out. That's fine. The issue I have is
Romana Productions raises an outstanding point in that he also killed Tony's parents.
That's right. But he is, in this film, he is far more down to earth and real than he should ever have been portrayed. As the Winter Soldier, he never spoke. As Bucky Barnes, when he speaks, he's a bit of a dick. So how can he be this super sweet, nice congressman who's obviously, I mean, he's a congressman, so clearly he's corrupt, right?
And he doesn't even speak and act in a way that seems like a logical continuation of where we left him at the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. It's like the people who wrote this character in this movie never saw his most previous appearance, or if they did, they didn't make much of an effort to create any sort of logical continuation. Because what is it, like less than a year after those events where we pick up these events? I guess it's long enough for him to run for Congress and win the election and be sworn into office, but it's a rather wild departure from when last we left him, because wasn't he pretty depressed and morose and not very eager to talk to people about things?
Let's take a look at that.
Okay.
The flavor of the entire world. Every person in this is dirty. There are no clean sets. There are no clean locations. Everything that you come across that appears like it should be clean is either in postmodern brutalist architecture, or is
That's a
made of
good call.
concrete.
It,
Like it's
and also the color palette of the movie is gray, dark gray, and darker
dismal.
gray.
It is
It's really a thing to behold. It's like a modern day Ingmar Bergman picture almost.
almost. I'll actually give it a nod for an interesting palette, even though that interesting palette is the most uninteresting group of colors. I mean, that did occur, and the void, the enemy, the big bad, the void is the inverse of the sentinel. Okay, so the sentinel is designed to be the literal Superman of America. The concept is this super soldier, this thing, which I have yet to determine where the source of the Sentinel's power is, where he was derived from. It was just an Oscorp experiment and a loose end. It never specified.
Yes, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but they were trying to replicate the same super soldier serum that Steve Rogers got, and derivatives of which were given to Bucky Barnes and the Red Guardian. But since when do those? No,
that's not it. That was a all right. So the Sentinel Project, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm drawing this out of like raw memory from sitting on the toilet when I was 12 reading comic books. If I'm not mistaken, the Sentinel Project was derived from a sample from Captain Marvel's, the original male Captain Marvel's genes. It's something that he gave up to the government, and it ended up in Oscorp's hands. And he did a whole bunch of experiments trying to replicate those capabilities in a human, and then destroyed. Most of the subjects died, with the exception, I think, of two, one of which we've met, which is Sentinel, and I can't remember what happened. I don't think I ever read what happened to the other one. The other one was
you raise a good point, because there may very well be a Captain Marvel tie-in, because at least as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe goes, this is only the second time that we've seen a character with a Superman-style power of flight, and the first one was Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, correct?
It's not just power of flight. It's power of flight.
No, it's a whole lot of it. It's basically unlimited powers. It's whatever the scene requires the powers to be for the scene.
And then he becomes the Void. And there's a couple of observations. Once the Void shows up, Bob is no longer there, and neither is the Sentinel. And by the way, that character transition happened so freaking fast, I got whiplash. Right? That was
correct.
That was so quick. Like, you just get to meet Bob, who's just here and doesn't know why. I agreed to an experiment, and Oscorp gave me some money, and I was a junkie, and so I did the thing. And hi, I'm Bob. To the Sentinel,
and we are never given any reason to give a shit about Bob before he becomes the big bad of the movie, except that he tells us he used to be a junkie and he's kind of an awkward dipshit sort of dude,
and he's definitely over his head.
Indeed.
And then Bob transfers through one conversation with the chick that's supposed to be the clone of that stunningly handsome woman in the Department of Homeland Security, I believe. What's her name?
Which one?
Looks just like her. The freaking Democrat that went Republican, has the stripe in her hair, is a damn fine woman.
Oh, Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
Oh, no, sir. That was funny, but not on point at all. You didn't even mean for it to be funny. I'm talking about the one that ran.
You mean you're talking about Tulsi Gabbard?
Oh, thank you, dear God. I kept trying to say Pelosi, but I knew that shit was wrong. My brain just wouldn't let me get past it.
No, yeah, I got you. I just needed a second.
Yeah, no. So she's basically the movie's version of Tulsi Gabbard. She has zero feelings, zero care. She manipulates everyone around her. The entire plot of the movie is based around the fact that she sent 5 of their loose end assassins to kill one another in a big incinerator. And that's a large portion of the problems in the movie, is they've got to get out of the big incinerator, and then they kill one of the people. And I'm not even sure who that person was. I don't even know why they were introduced. I mean,
And also, I mean, back to the oppressively quippy, oppressively meta dialogue. You can't have the villain in the movie be acting like that. It's bad enough when you've got all the protagonists acting that way. You cannot have every single character in the movie being quippy and meta and ha snarky funny all the time. It just becomes so insufferable. And of course, you've got my. I recall in one of our prior programs, I did a whole list of what have become standard tropes in late period superhero pictures. One of which is that within the first 5 minutes of the picture, you have to have the 107-pound female lead easily dispatch a dozen grown male assassins in hand-to-hand combat. And it's like they were going right down my trope list and trying to prove me right, which I do appreciate, but it gets kind of ridiculous. Talk about trying to play up to the stereotype. They are really leaning into every stereotype of the things that people no longer like about late period MCU pictures. And
right.
I wonder who is doing the oversight here, because
This entire production is literally a cavalcade of the things people hate about Marvel.
exactly.
Yeah, you have a group of criminals, even a dirty Captain America, who is here on a black bag project so he can go back to being the clean, spiffy new guy, runs into a dude who takes Captain's shield and bends it into a horseshoe. And I do got to give him credit. He still carries the shield.
Yeah, I was mildly amused by that. I will give him that one.
It's not an amusement thing. It's like that's the only symbol he's got of being the all-American captain, you know. Like,
But I will also throw this out there, that in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, we learn that this shield is not a vibranium shield. It's just like a shield that he knocked together in his garage out of whatever kind of metal he had laying around. So why, when we start this picture, does this shield all of a sudden have the same properties as the Steve Rogers shield? Because that is wrong.
okay, I might be able to give a little bit of an answer on that. There were several vibranium shields made. There were like 4 or 5 of them made total. Only one of them was the classic circle, right? The rest were done in, various shield shapes. I was fully on board with the idea of giving the second Captain America one of the other shields. Now, there's some of them that are different. They're weird. They have other abilities, like the round one bounces off of stuff and comes back and stuff like that, right?
Yes, and the other prototypes are very briefly depicted in the second act of Captain America: The First Avenger, as I recall.
Right.
The scene where Natalie Dormer is hitting on him when he's waiting outside Tommy Lee Jones's office.
They're not all vibranium. There are several super meta metals available in Marvel. And so you have an adamantium shield, which is absurdly heavy and would take somebody like Captain America to be able to carry it in the first place. And it doesn't have the deadening effect. Like when bullets hit Cap's shield, they just hit and fall off because it doesn't reflect the momentum, right? Yeah. With the vibranium, it reflects 100% of the momentum. And so when Cap's using that shield, and he's really slow with it, by the way, because it's really heavy. When he uses that shield and he comes across like an MG32, he just posts up and reflects it back at the machine gun nest until they destroy themselves. It's kind of silly, but at the same time, it's kind of cool.
And do you remember the rapturously positive reviews that this picture got? Oh man, they were just every Hollywood shill media outlet was just falling all over itself, trying to tell you this is such a return to form for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's so great and awesome and lovely, and you have to go see it. But it's not. It's really kind of a piece of shit, actually. If you cut this thing up into 6 pieces and made it a Disney Plus show, it would be probably a dead average Disney Plus show, if we're being honest.
Do you remember the Cruella de Vil film? Have you watched any of it by chance?
The Emma Stone one?
Yes, the one where she's.
I didn't see it, but I recall it.
They try to make her the hero. Basically,
Yeah.
All right, I think that's what this is. I think we're seeing the final dregs of they're trying to do the flawed superhero thing, but they're missing the reason why people are flawed, and that the hero part overcomes the flaws, right? In this case, we have nothing but diversity and the power of friendship. That is
Yes.
full on the message behind this is
We
diversity and the power
save the world with the power of friendship and diversity.
there is a scene, and it is, you could have just shown a 15-second clip of this scene and explained the entire series, the entire movie. There is a child or old woman, an old woman. She's getting crushed by falling block of wall or something, right? A building's falling in. It's going to kill her. Oh no!
Yes.
Captain America, the dirty Captain America, jumps his dirty ass in between her and that wall and catches it, right? Wedges it down onto the ground, and then she just sits there while the rest of the team, one at a time, show up and help Cap move a wall that he caught falling from 15 stories up.
It's like that last god awful Fantastic Four movie from, what was it, 9 or 10 years ago, before they made the current Fantastic Four movie, which I still haven't seen, but that ties in. But their spaceship shows up in the post-credit scene of this movie. But that was exactly the situation there. We can't defeat Doctor Doom with all of our powers individually, but maybe if we work as a team. And they solve the whole issue within 5 seconds. Isn't it great when we work as a team, guys? We've got the power of friendship. But that movie was legendarily awful. And they weren't trying to make a legendarily awful movie here, but they did the exact same trope. And it, again, makes me wonder who's writing this shit, who's directing it, and who is exercising the oversight over it. Is Kevin Feige just in his basement drinking now full time? He must be.
I'm just kind of a little bit pissy with the scene where homie's in the limousine and he's got the whole squad with him. He just guessed where they would be. He literally drove randomly out into the desert and beeped his horn and found his daughter.
Because the scene needed him to be there, so poof, he magically shows up.
I have another option, and stick with me. Remember, she went by his apartment earlier that day. I think he planted an AirTag on her. I think she comes by his place when she's going to do something really dangerous, and he planted an AirTag on her, and she went on to go do her super dangerous thing, being tracked the whole way through.
It's a good call. And I think you've probably put more thought into this than the screenwriters have. So well done.
I don't know that dude. Like, I was watching it the second time, and I got to that point, and I paused it, and I looked at that limo in the desert, and I'm like, why is that limo here? That limo has no business being here. If she doesn't have a cell phone in her pocket actively pinging right now, which why would she, being a super soldier going into a super clandestine secret base that nobody knows about except her, right? And how would he know that she's actually getting out? I mean, if anything, and you remember the big puzzle was the power of friendship. Yet again, they all had to stick their backs against each other and walk up the wall.
Oh my God. Right? Oh my God.
Oh, dear God, I laughed so hard I blew freaking popcorn kernels out of my nose, bro. That shit was so freaking funny to me, because when you get to the top, and they didn't even do this part right. When you get to the top, everyone falls but one person.
Yep.
But they're super soldiers. They're all super soldiers, and so they all get up.
And Yelena has to catch Bob with her little shooty wire thingy, which she shouldn't need to, because doesn't he have the power of flight?
He doesn't.
I'm asking too many questions here.
He doesn't know that yet. You have to remember, when he was walking his way up that wall, this is some random dude named Bob with 4 super soldiers, and he's going to go back to back with Captain America and walk up that wall, and it's not going to flag him. He's not going to be exhausted. Dude, me or you, halfway up there, he's just a mile underground, bro. Remember, he jumped. He's like, I'll be right back. And he just hits the ground like a fucking meteor.
Mm-hmm. And there, one kind thing I can say about this movie is it is refreshing to see a movie with Florence Pugh in it where she doesn't get naked.
You're just mean. Don't listen to him. Shake what your mama gave you.
I mean, I don't need to get into it. I mean,
No, it's not necessary. One final coding that just kind of, I don't know. Every aspect of this film sets my teeth on edge. It's all on the verge of cringe, not because they were trying to make a cringy product, but because they were obviously trying so hard to endear each one of these characters to you in a broken and kind of flawed way. But all they showed us is that every single one of them can be bought. You can't trust any of them. In fact, the most trustworthy one out of the group is the old Russian guy who's doing it for money.
Yes. And I would submit also that I see no possible way around the fact that the Avengers picture that's coming out, is it next year or the year after next? Whichever one it is, I see no possible way around that film being a disaster. A complete unmitigated disaster, because you've got all the characters from this picture, you've got the Fantastic Four characters, you've got all the original Avengers, you've got, I think you've got, they are just throwing every damn thing at the wall with this. When I read somewhere that they were actually going to spend $800 million just on actor salaries for that picture, that's going to be a disaster. That might actually bankrupt the studio. I know that shouldn't be possible, but it might bankrupt the studio.
You remember
the rumors indicate that they are not even shooting with a finished script, which is, you know, the way that you shoot these pictures now. Apparently, you just do your big action sequences, and then you write a bunch of dialogue that ties it all together, and it better be quippy and meta and ha ha ha. And oh man, that's what a train wreck that's going to be. You can't have a picture with 50 goddamn characters in it. It just doesn't work. You're not even going to have time to introduce them all, much less set them up or give them anything useful to do.
You remember the conversation we had about which property Disney should let go if they were going to let one go? And I said Marvel, specifically because of the budget concerns.
Yep, and I agreed with you.
You can,
and I still think you're right.
Yeah, no, Marvel's going to drag all this down if they don't get a grip on it, because you can't pay for Black Widow to be in a show because she's worth too much, and you can't recast Black Widow because no one wants to see that. What's up, Tootie Bug? Welcome in.
And I think in the popular public consciousness, generally speaking, most people still consider the Marvel Cinematic Universe saga to have ended 6 years ago when they defeated Thanos and Tony Stark died. And you're gonna have a real big problem trying to get similar numbers of people back up on that hobby horse. And I frankly don't think it can be done.
Here's another aspect of all of that too. The concept of casting Robert Downey Jr. as Von Doom, that is a disaster just waiting to happen.
It is. And it reeks of desperation.
Even if you utilize a parallel dimension from which Tony Stark became Von Doom, which I'm not even sure exists in the actual Marvelverse, but that just muddies the waters. I mean, dear God, if you want to spend that much money on a known actor, talk to Johnny Depp.
And aside from which, the whole multiverse thing has effectively ruined this universe anyway, because no deaths are permanent. Everything can be undone. Somebody dies, you can just go grab their doppelganger from a different reality, and nothing has any meaning then. You can undo any event, you can reanimate any person, resurrect any person, and what are we even doing at that point?
It doesn't even save the universe. It saves a single thread on the timeline, and there are other threads that need saving, but we're not going to worry about that. That's someone else's problem. Right?
That's true. And it's a hell of a big problem.
It does seem to be a hell of a big problem, especially when you start going into the various movies involving Doctor Strange. Because Von Doom has a similar sort of issue with his timeline. He does that dark magic type shit that everybody hates in Marvel and hasn't really been depicted well. In fact, the best attempt to depict this type of dark magic has really been the Hellboy series.
You haven't seen the latest Fantastic Four picture, have you?
I have not.
Has anybody in the chat seen it?
I imagine it's heinous. I mean,
Yeah,
it's gonna
I'm not sure because everybody seemed to like it pretty well. Like even I was actually rather surprised to see some YouTubers whose judgment I tend to trust and who have, you know, hated all of the recent MCU projects. They actually seemed to like it, but it still died a death at the box office because I think nobody wants to see these movies anymore, even when they're good.
I don't. You wouldn't know because they haven't done a good one. Um, and I think that's what it comes down to. They when they stopped following the already established arcs that were available in the Marvel series already, they don't know how to write heroes. They, like I've said this before, they're trying to do the broken hero that overcomes his obstacles and becomes a better person for it. But they don't know what better people look like. They don't know what obstacles actually are. They don't know what dialogue is. They have no freaking clue. What makes a hero is not so much his broken aspect as his willingness to work through that break and to keep being a hero, to make the decisions with integrity that need to be made in the moment.
Yes, and also he doesn't define himself exclusively all day, every day by his brokenness and his trauma and his pain. And that's what this picture tries to do really, really doggedly is that
I mean,
it's just a bunch of people trying to drink their pain away, basically.
who's the main character in this film? That's my question.
It's got to be Yelena.
Yelena, right? So we're
Yeah.
talking about a second generation super soldier who is only a super soldier because her dad took the serum and knocked up her mom. She probably killed her mom being born. I mean, let's be honest. If you're
Right,
like
and
that,
we only first met her what 5 years ago in the Black Widow picture that was actually a prequel that comes out after we have already seen Black Widow die. So that's decidedly non-ideal.
right? And even then, her super soldier training is different from almost all the others. Hers, she actually goes down. I don't know what the term is in Marvel, but like the same type of training that Black Widow went through, but not the same type of training that the Red Guardian went through. These were very different super soldiers.
Right, and also not only have we only met her one time in one movie, but there doesn't seem to be anything in this movie except for a couple of very fleeting passing dialogue references to any of the events in that picture. Which brings me back to the point I made a few minutes ago that it doesn't appear like the screenwriters who wrote this thing are really all that familiar with the previous installments in this universe, which is strange.
So the Stark building is essentially, or was that no? It was the Stark building, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Stark building, which then became the Avengers Tower, and then they moved out of that and went to upstate New York, which is where the final battle with Thanos happens in Endgame.
Right. Okay, so this clandestine, super dark government operation that was attached directly to Oscorp has somehow acquired the Stark Tower as a basis of operations that hasn't been updated in what did they say, 16 years or something like that? I mean, I don't even know what year.
Yeah, because we have to take the blip into account, don't we?
Right. So, and I mean, it's just so much data dumped into a film, and
it's the viewer has way too much shit they have to keep track of now in order to be able to discern what the hell is happening, and even what the motivations of the characters are. There is just too goddamn much content. Now, even if it was just the movies, it would be an unwieldy amount of content. But you need to not just have seen all the movies, but you need to have seen every goddamn one of the Disney Plus shows, some of which are really quite god awful and very much a chore to get through.
Some are bad.
And they're making a Young Avengers picture too, aren't they? God, yeah, this is going to be such a train wreck. This this whole franchise is gonna fucking be on fire, going straight off the edge of Eastwood Ravine down into the bottom of the chasm and exploding in a blaze of glory, I predict.
And let's be honest, that's probably the best we can hope for.
Probably so. You know, the best one can hope for is an entertaining train wreck, oftentimes in life. But I'm sure as hell not paying money for it. That's for goddamn sure.
Yeah, I can't go to a theater nowadays.
No.
I just can't do it. I cannot, in good conscience, carry my ass up there and sit for 2 hours at a movie that I absolutely know I'm gonna hate.
Especially with as much as it costs now. I mean,
Right?
even if you know you're gonna like the movie, if you've got every reason to suspect you're gonna like the movie, it is still, it costs drastically more than going to the movies used to, and that's kind of a big deal for most people. And also you have to, as much as I don't condone everybody blaming the pandemic for the current struggles of the motion picture industry, it is a fact that a lot of people who were accustomed to going to the theater got accustomed to not going to the theater. And when the theaters were closed, what did they do? They built really nice home entertainment systems, and many people are, and the pictures, they come out quicker onto streaming after the theaters than they ever did before. And the majority of people now are simply more than willing to wait for 6 or 8 weeks until the thing comes out on their streaming platform, and they don't have to pay $100 goddamn dollars to go to the theater and, you know, contend with people checking their phones constantly and their phones making noises and people talking next to you and that whole scene. You know, why bother with it?
Yeah. There's another layer here. So I don't believe some of these movies that have been released recently were intended to be released into theaters. I think they were intended to be released straight to like Disney theater streaming or whatever, and they were expecting to pick up their revenue on that end of it and weren't really expecting a strong box office showing in the theaters. And so if that's the case, which I don't know how much money was spent on the film, but if that's the case, then the idea of having a theater release on something that you generated specifically for your private market, that would indicate that everything generated at the theater release would basically be profit, because you're actually basing your, but then again, I mean, they still had the budget issues of trying to get the right people into the right roles.
Well, yeah, and circling back to the Black Widow movie, I think that was the first time they tried that arrangement that you're talking about, because didn't they release that simultaneously in the theater and on Disney Plus, but they made you pay extra for it on Disney Plus?
Right.
I think that's what they did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was wondering then, because I wasn't really impressed with the quality of that film either. I like the idea of seeing some hot chicks rolling around trying to stab each other, but beyond that,
well, yeah, and that caused Scarlett Johansson to file a big giant lawsuit against Disney, because as the lead actress, part of her contract is that she gets a cut of the theater grosses, but she doesn't get a cut of the Disney Plus grosses. So she's like, "What are you doing to me here, guys?" And
exactly.
She prevailed rather spectacularly in that suit, as I recall. And obviously, she hasn't been in any Marvel production since then. But I think they're bringing her back for the whatever it's called, the next one, aren't they? I'm gonna have to look that up.
I have it the froggiest, man. I'll be honest, I wasn't exactly planning on watching the Thunderbolts, but after tooling through looking at various streaming platforms, I thought maybe there's something new on Disney I haven't seen. Lo and behold, there's the Thunderbolts. But it's an interesting point you make about Black Widow. Today, after I watched the Thunderbolts for the second time, trying to gain some type of idea of what the plot was supposed to be, right? And we still have to talk about the Void. We haven't even mentioned the Void. It hasn't even come up. But Black Widow was the movie that I went to after, that I watched right after. And I did it because I was a little bit confused about Home Chick sourcing and it didn't really clarify anything. They could have cast anybody for that role, and it wouldn't have mattered.
Well, and they probably put it right on the top of your suggested to watch next list when you finish the new one.
Probably, and I don't blame them because I needed the clarification. But that being said, let's roll into the Sentinel versus the Void. So this entire sequence never happens. It is imaginary, and either in the Void space that the Void controls are actually in Bob's head. The Sentinel's head, see, that's what I don't like about it. They transferred from Bob a single conversation with Tulsi Gabbard, followed by the Sentinel, another conversation with the fight scene between the Sentinel and the New Avengers, right? Where he doesn't
he's the Sentinel for how long? About 85 seconds?
Minutes. Like 7 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
And most of that's him walking around talking softly, which I can respect. But
and most of what they talk about during those 7 minutes or however long it is that he colored his hair blonde. Not making this up.
That dead serious. The biggest plot twist in this bit is that he's blonde now. And he's not very blonde. He's more of a dirty blonde kind of. So he's not Homelander. Don't make that mistake. No. He doesn't actually have an attitude. In fact, he's kind of a doofy, dopey kind of kid as Bob. But then when he becomes the Sentinel, he's suddenly a smug, smarmy piece of shit who immediately turns on the people who think they have control over him and becomes the Void.
Yes. He is three different, I don't want to say characters, but he is three different entities, let's say. And the movie doesn't make much of an effort trying to educate us what the relationship is between the three different forms that he takes, which I think is another pretty glaring problem in this thing.
There's a little bit, a very little bit. When she makes physical contact with him, she has one of her flashbacks to having to wax one of her, sister ballerina trainees or whatever, right?
Right. And for me, those scenes just seemed incredibly ripped off from Scarlet Witch's powers in Age of Ultron, where
I kind of feel like they were supposed to.
Maybe so.
I mean, I think the idea there is it's the same type of dark magic instead of red magic, whatever difference that makes. But then there's the scene with Captain America, the dirty one, who
John Walker.
He does his thing and he's back facing some traumatic event in his life. He's sitting with his baby. It's the most traumatic thing ever. He's supposed to sit with his baby. He's stuck on the damn phone. He's scrolling through, la-di-da-da, and the wife comes in and replaces him because you're not actually spending time with the baby. You're doing it wrong, yada, yada, yada. But he is.
And wasn't that dude summarily executing civilians the last time we saw him in the Falcon and Winter Soldier picture? And when they don't deal with that at all, we're just supposed to root for him now? I mean, what are we doing here, guys?
He doesn't even like his own kid. I mean, you see that.
And he doesn't even like his own kid.
She comes in, picks up the kid, starts bouncing her around, and he just gets up and walks out. And you can't blame it on him being an alcoholic because the super soldier processes alcohol faster than he can get drunk. Says so with Captain America.
The most likable character in the movie is the Red Guardian, who was just a comedic buffoon sidekick in the Black Widow movie. The only other time we ever met him. Again, I have no idea what we're doing here. But to answer the question from a moment ago, it does not appear, even though this is the longest cast list I have ever seen for any motion picture in my entire life, Scarlett Johansson is not on it. You want to hear this cast list? You're not even going to believe how many names are on this motherfucker. Should I read them out?
Do it.
Chris Hemsworth, Vanessa Kirby, Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan, Letitia Wright, Paul Rudd, Wyatt Russell, Tina Huerta, Ebon Moss-Bach, I don't know who that is. Simu Liu, who I think is Shang-Chi, Florence Pugh, Kelsey Grammer, Louis Pullman, Danny Ramirez, Joseph Quinn, David Harbour, Winston Duke, Hannah John Kamen, Tom Hiddleston, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Alan Cumming, Rebecca Romaine, James Morrison, Channing Tatum, Pedro Pascal, Robert Downey Jr. So we've got all the old Avengers, all the new Avengers, all the Fantastic Four, and we've got all the freaking old X-Men from 25 years ago. Like, how in God's name are you going to come up with something for all these characters to do?
All right, so you remember in Age of Ultron when there's this moment, there's a huge cast list to that one too. Like, it's massive. I don't think it's quite as big as Endgame, but it's pretty big. That movie to me always ran like something on a speed run. There's so much going on so constantly that it's hard to keep up with what's actually happening. And it doesn't help much that the big bad in that film can actually operate like a swarm. And so any individual of the villain is the villain.
And even in Endgame, with the size of that cast, which is much smaller than the next film's cast, you were right up against the problem of you've got so many characters that some of them you barely have time to introduce and give them one line of dialogue, and we never see them again. Like Captain Marvel, for instance.
Right.
She's got one or two lines in the first part of the first act, and then she comes in right at the very end to be the Deus ex machina, and that's it. She's completely absent for the middle 2.5 hours.
There's and keep in mind, this is with a entity with the power of Superman, who could have showed up and dealt with all of these issues themselves. There's a decent chance that Thanos would have just been outright bitch slapped by this particular character from the Marvel Universe. Like, Thanos would show up and then decide suddenly that he didn't want to fuck with this particular planet because that bitch is there. Is how that should have went. You know what I mean? Like, this is how it should have occurred. Is she showed up, pimp slapped him around a little bit, and took his ass back out to space and locked him up.
But it's great how she's able to use the power of cosmic vaginas to just smash through his entire mothership and send it careening into the harbor.
Yeah, there's so much alien tech on Earth now in the Marvel Universe that you shouldn't even recognize your average communication devices, right?
And that's why I was wondering if anybody in the chat had seen this latest Fantastic Four picture, because as I recall, just having read a plot synopsis, apparently there's a callback to the Eternals, which everybody has tried their best to forget. The Eternals, which was the first real box office bomb in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That was such trash.
It was such trash. That was a terrible movie. God, that was terrible.
All right, so the suspension of disbelief, and this is the primary problem with all of Marvel, right? That the first handful of movies didn't have. They have boxed themselves in with so many prequels and postquels and sequels and reimaginings and various other things. They have nowhere to go. And the what were the Eternals?
Yes.
Are a perfect example of this, because they wanted new superheroes to introduce. They went back to the dawn of time and created some superheroes that are distinct from any extant heroes so that they have the full copyright on them, right? They then want you to forget that these people exist through the first 4 or 5 Marvel movies until they finally make an appearance in one of the offshoot series, and then forget that they exist from that point forward. Because at no point in time did any of these people show up and pimp slap Thanos. And
I think it only occurred to the producers in post-production after they had already shot everything that, God, maybe we need to stick a line of dialogue or two in here that explains why these idiots never got involved in any of the world-ending crises that they should have been available to help with. And they make up some bullshit reason about, it was only these certain creatures that we were allowed to mess with, and we weren't allowed to interfere in human affairs unless it was one of these certain types of. And come on now, guys, that's just lazy ass filmmaking.
I was kind of peed off when they had was it Dr. Zillow or Zero or what's his name? The guy come back as a computer.
And Dr. Zola.
Zola, yeah. And not have him come back as some figure like Dr. House later in the middle of all the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff. That should have been
I'm not a
a
German
shoe-in.
computer. I am from Austria.
Yeah, that should have been a shoe-in, bro. About halfway through Civil War, when all the damn flying, that might be the wrong movie. Anyway, about halfway through the one where all the helipads are flying around shooting at folks, Zilla should have showed up in the middle of all that and been like, "We've been waiting patiently to initiate the Fifth Reich. You're now proud servants of the system." Me.
Yep. Yeah, and let me check this. See if there's a plot synopsis on here for Avengers Doomsday. It doesn't look like there is, but from what I've heard from the rumors that have come to my ears, apparently the Time Variance Authority is going to be an extremely big component of the narrative in this thing, and that's how they're going from the Loki series, which is, I believe, the only place that we've seen it so far. And what a stupid idea, because it just becomes a get out of jail free card for every narrative problem you have. Like I was saying before,
Okay.
character dies, they don't have to really be dead. Just go grab another copy of them. The world gets destroyed. Just go to a different Earth. It's fine. I think in the post-credit scene in Thunderbolts, where they say interdimensional spaceship coming into the atmosphere, and it's the Fantastic Four, I think that's probably the first indication of that's how they're going to get all of these assholes together in the same place. And again, how do you come up with something for all those people to do? You would almost have to make the film 8.5 hours long just to have time to give everybody one line of dialogue. I don't know how they're going to make this work. I think it's going to be a disaster.
I watched Loki. I actually kind of liked it.
There were things about it that I didn't mind all that much.
I loved, and just hate me if you want, but I loved the complete bureaucracy built around the Time Authority. The fact that its purpose was to be bureaucracy and nothing else.
I did like the retro production design of the TVA offices, and in the second season, I really liked the Short Round character. I thought he was pretty awesome. Short Round kicks ass. I like me some Short Round.
Yeah, and I mean, sure, and gave him something to do for a week, but I just kind of like the idea of, all right, so for each character you have, for each super character you have to have some form of foil for that character, or else the superhero dynamic fails. That's why the Green Goblin is such a good foil for Spider-Man. That's why Venom is such a good foil for Spider-Man, but there's a couple of characters out there that there's just not a very good foil for. And Captain Marvel is one of them.
That's been the weakness in a lot of the later period MCU films, is that very, very weak antagonists.
So by including people like Thor and Odin and Loki, you shift the level of power into cosmic levels, right? And when you introduce Captain Marvel and she's able to basically pimp slap around Thor like a bad puppy, not that she would, but she could, that changes the shift level to an even beyond cosmic level. And that breaks the sequence completely, because where the fuck was Captain Marvel when Thanos showed up? You know what I'm saying?
And that's another interesting thing to note, is that Brie Larson's name also appears nowhere in this gigantic cast list.
That's true. Where on earth did the source of the Sentinel's power come from? What experiment was Oscorp running? They mentioned the name of the experiment. It rings no bells in my head. It was the Sentinel program. I thought the Sentinel program was the robots that were used in the Danger Room in the Marvels. Weren't they Sentinels? Correct me if I'm wrong.
It seems like they should have been.
I'm pretty sure they were
characters. All the characters were so busy trying to out-quip and out-one-liner each other. We don't have time for background information. We don't have time for exposition. What do you want here? It's time to get to the next big action piece.
My point is that this Sentinel project comes out of completely nowhere. The idea that Oscorp was working on some super soldier program based obviously around Captain Marvel's powers or something similar, because I haven't seen any of those powers utilized by anyone else. It's Captain Marvel or nobody.
Yep.
So obviously, whatever they were doing,
especially the Superman like flight capability, as we were talking about earlier.
right? But whatever they were doing was successful, and they didn't figure it out. They just had this guy sitting around over there, or they knew it was a problem and didn't know what to do about it, so they kept him asleep. I mean, after all, if the intrusive thoughts power is something that happens to anyone who comes across him, that would kind of lend them towards not making him the Sentinel.
And it's a serious problem that viewers find themselves having to ask questions like this because you couldn't be bothered writing the necessary exposition into your script. That's just really shitty, shoddy screenwriting, I would submit.
Right. And the fact that there's no mention, to my knowledge, of the Sentinel program in any of the previous Oscorp Spider-Man appearances, I got nothing for it. The only Sentinel program that comes to mind is the robot project that was made to replace basically Age of Ultron if run by Professor X, right?
Yeah.
And this was, I think, like a Hammer product or something, if I remember right, in the original. Banta, can you cover me? But the Sentinel project, right? I'm correct, right? It was the big fucking giant damn robots that would adapt to whatever was thrown at them, and so they were sent after superheroes to kill them.
Yeah, to the best of my recollection, yeah.
So how does this tie into that is my question.
It's an excellent question, and the movie doesn't really give us any means of supplying an answer. And as I continue to look at this cast list and this character list, I'm especially puzzled by why they think they need to bring all of the old X-Men characters in here. Not just Stewart and McKellen, I mean, who are both on the verge of death by now. They've got to be in their late 80s, but you've got Rebecca Romaine and Alan Cumming. I mean, we haven't seen them since X-Men 2 over 20 years ago, have we? I mean, Rebecca Romaine was already replaced entirely by Jennifer Lawrence for the last trilogy of X-Men movies. So I don't understand what we're doing here.
And that's another point. A lot of the characters that these people are playing, and this is a problem I have with Marvel in general, they really shot themselves in the foot whenever they cast individuals as the character rather than casting people to play a character, right? Yeah. Black Widow is Johansson. Johansson is Black Widow, right? So Iron Man is Robert Downey Jr., and Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. This is an error, a physical problem, because the more successful your movies become, the more you have to pay the actors to play them. You don't have the threat of replacing them available to reduce. There's no competition. And while, yes, you get the full brunt of their star power that you've helped create, that's all you get.
And it seems so incredibly long ago now, but what year was Iron Man 2? Wasn't it like 2010, 2011, something like that? But when they first cast Johansson as Black Widow and brought her into the universe, it was still cool and unique, the idea that a 112-pound female could defeat full-grown men in hand-to-hand combat. And people liked it so much, they just made it a trope in every single movie going forward. And now it's such a trope. It's so completely absurd and has reached such unwieldy levels that we have to have, like I said, it is almost paint by numbers now that within the opening sequence of the movie, you have to have a little tiny female character defeating a whole shitload of fully grown male assassins. And it's just what we do now. But it used to be the exception and not the rule. When you make it the rule, you just turn it into comedy. And it has become comedy now.
It really shouldn't be comedy.
No, it shouldn't, because when she did it, and it only happened with one character in one movie, it was pretty freaking awesome.
Mm.
But talk about beating a good thing into the ground. They sure have done that. Now it's every female character is expected to be able to do that, and it has completely lost any value that it once had. And now we don't even put Scarlett Johansson in the movies anymore because she sued the studio.
Another thing I hate is the concept of gun fu. I hate it so much. So much. The idea that you're going to come over to me and take my firearm from my hand and hit me with it, sir.
Well,
Maybe
I always like it when, you know, when the female protagonist has 7 or 8 men that she needs to get through, and 7 of them just stand back and wait their turn while she's doing like the head scissors Hurricane Rana thing on the first guy, and then dispatches, and then they almost line up one at a time to
so. The part that I've always wondered about is where do they get these henchmen that are so diehard on their side, man? Like, how do you end up in a position where the Black Widow is coming in? You now know she's coming, right? You're the guy who figures it out. You're the one who caught a glimpse out of the corner of your eye, and you realize Black Widow showed up, and you're fucked, right?
And can we please just stop it with the over reliance on acrobatic pro wrestling moves? Because it's just not cool anymore. If a woman was actually trying to fight a bunch of men and defeat them and stay alive, she would be attacking each one of their testicles. Let's be real about this. That's all she would be doing, is trying to hit them each in the nuts.
And you mentioned the Scarlet Witch earlier. And I hate to even bring it up. Was it Agatha all along or whatever?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Rosie's, man. Yet again,
Oh,
another
God.
case of the power of diversity and friendship overcomes everything. I don't get this,
Yeah.
bro. Where's this coming from?
Agatha all along is the acolyte of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. Oh, well, you're not wrong. Jesus, I didn't see it until just now.
Yeah, my daughter made me watch that entire series with her.
Oh my
Just
God.
just because it was so god awful hilarious.
I watched the
Oh,
first,
and
I
they've
think
got
the
they're
first
they're doing musical numbers and all this shit. Oh my God, that was
like I said, I watched the first episode.
reflecting back on it. And I don't say this lightly. It might have actually been more cringeworthy than the acolyte, but it's close.
Son, I don't know, man. I haven't seen all of it, so I'm gonna take your word for that one. But it's
In any event, it is beyond all dispute that you're looking at the nadir of both franchises that happened almost exactly at the same moment.
true, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, the pendulum has to swing.
And now Disney wonders where all their male fans went.
Yeah,
How could this have happened?
you spent 15 years telling us that we were white racists and phobes, and that you didn't make any of this for us. We're not the person you made it for. It's not for me. It's for the people that
Yes.
want to watch it. Not
And you
me.
told us right out loud that we are going to make this franchise and these properties and this universe female centric, and it's going to be great because we're going to just be bombarded by brand new female fans. And sorry, but that's not the way the world works. It's not really ever going to be the way the world works. Star Wars didn't need female fans because they already had female fans. And it's the same
Right.
thing for Marvel. And you know why it is that way? Because nobody wants to talk about this. You're not supposed to say it out loud, but wives and girlfriends tend to get into the things that their husbands and boyfriends are into. And that's just the way the world tends to work. And there is nothing wrong with that. You didn't have any shortage of female fans. You didn't need to make every property and every product female centric. That was the opposite of what you needed to do. And they are reaping the results of that now. And any person with half a brain in their head could have told them that, but good luck getting through the hubristic ego of Kathy Kennedy, I guess.
It's all been fan fiction. It's the same problem that,
Yes.
that we've had with Star Wars. It's none of
Self inserts and fan fiction.
self
Absolutely.
inserts and fan fiction. That is the crux of the writing problem. I'm not speaking about the rest of Disney. I'm talking about the writers. The fact that these people have come to the point in their career where the best thing they could come up with is Izakai and some chick into a self-deluded dream.
Yes. I am a middle-aged lesbian, so I want to write a Star Wars product with a middle-aged lesbian protagonist. And there's your pitch right there. And Kathy Kennedy says, "Yep, here's $300 million." And that's
Right?
actually what happens now, amazingly enough.
And when you look at different franchises, there are different aspects of the separate franchises, you find the similar sort of writing approach. I can't remember the chick that was responsible for the Acolyte, but as I understand,
Leslie Headland.
she had never written jack shit before that. Like, she had one little property that she had done, and
Yeah,
then
she had directed a couple of episodes of episodic television like years ago, and that was it. That was absolutely it.
They gave her an entire franchise to just frolic off into the fucking moon. Like, go fuck this up real good. And she did. She did exactly what you expect.
Well, and speaking of this same object lesson, I'm gonna say two more words that are gonna make you cringe, and those two words are She-Hulk.
Come on, man. I think I have the same opinion of She-Hulk that I have of Black Panther.
And you can say the same thing about the Hawkeye series too, because that entire show is just, let's replace the male Hawkeye with a Hawkeye who's got a vagina and is a hot young girl. That's the only reason that show exists. It is for the new girl Hawkeye to make an idiot out of the old guy Hawkeye.
Sorry, dude. I just realized who you were talking about. And she is just so hot to me. Especially, like, what was her name?
Haley Steinfeld.
Haley, yeah. She played a different character in shit. I'm having a brain fart. She played Draper.
For you.
She played a Marine, a Mars Marine named Draper, and she was so hot in that movie, that show. Oh my God. She's just an absolute freaking badass throughout the whole thing. She's basically a genetic super soldier trained by Mars. And just, there is no scene. Haley Steinfeld, yeah. She there is no scene in that series. What's the name of that series? Jesus Christ, it's killing me.
All right, I've got her television credits right in front. What year do you think it was?
It's The Expanse.
Her television credits begin in 2007 with Back to You. Then she does, huh?
The Expanse. It's probably her greatest roles. In that she is not a waifishly thin, sneaky chick. She is a very, very thick soldier. And oh my God, I'm sorry, I just have a weakness for strong women. It was done well, is what I'm saying. Like, she was the type of woman who could walk in and whip the shit out of 5 fucking assassins. I mean, you could tell by the way she was buff and whoa.
I do not see her on the cast list for The Expanse.
Oh, she's in there, bro. I promise you. Has to be her.
Yeah, I'm not arguing.
I swear I'll remember that beauty mark for the rest of my life, bro. Like, I've got an unfortunate crush on that woman. Like, if I ever met her in fucking person, I'd straight up turn into the Vulture from the old Looney Tunes cartoons.
All right, she's 28 years old, so I'm willing to give you that one.
I'm just saying, she is a stunningly beautiful woman, and in The Expanse, she played an amazing character and did it well. You say what you want, Matt to Black, but I will stand by that one. I'll shut up before we get
the point being, the Hawkeye series only exists to emasculate the character that we grew to know and like pretty well in the Avengers movies.
So here's another aspect of it that really burns my balls. Some of these characters are patently immortal. Like, they don't age. Like, take Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman plays Wolverine. Wolverine
Yes.
looks old. The reason Wolverine looks old is because Hugh Jackman is old. Wolverine looks about 45. I don't give a damn what year you come across him in.
I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to mention before when you were talking about the Thunderbolt scene with the limo in the desert. When I saw the limo in the desert, you know what I said? I said, come on, guys, we're doing Logan. We are obviously doing Logan right here. That's
Right.
exactly what I'm looking at.
And I hate the fact, and this drove me crazy. He says, I think he calls it the Beast and says she's bulletproof, and then immediately gets riddled with bullets.
Yes.
Throws the scene where he throws the vodka on the hood of the Humvee like he's done something.
Uh-huh. And then Bucky shows up and flips the car completely on its roof at high speed, and everybody's just fine.
Yeah, like
we got no injuries here. We're all good.
I'll even let that go. They're super soldiers, right? Maybe they weren't fine. For all we know, they died and healed before you got the camera up there. Okay, sure, whatever. They're willing to accept the injuries involved, right? Fine.
And you know the kid who plays John Walker, the bargain basement Captain America. You know he's Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's kid, right?
Okay, that explains a lot, though.
I mean, he looks exactly like a perfect cross between the two of them. It's actually kind of creepy.
A little creepy now that you mentioned it. You're not wrong. I'm having some inner space vibes suddenly.
Yeah.
But I mean, what can you do? We're stuck watching the drivel that's being produced, and when you line up Thunderbolts next to Amazon's latest Freakinette edition, the War of the Worlds with Ice Cube making funny faces at the camera. I'm going to watch 28 years later this week. That's your homework as well.
Here's a question for you. What would you say was the last inarguably good movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Has there been one post Endgame?
No.
I don't think there has been.
All right.
And arguably, Endgame was a step down from Infinity War. I think most people agree with that now. I think the reputation of Endgame hasn't prospered all that much in the last 6 years. I think people were so excited to see the end of the story that they maybe enjoyed it perhaps more than it warranted.
Yeah.
Or maybe thought it was better than it really is, because it certainly is not anywhere near as good as Infinity War, I don't think. And I don't think anybody would argue that point, really.
Infinity War was very well done. I don't know, man. To get to another scene as I don't know, man. That's a hard one. It's not that great. We don't have a whole lot of selection after Infinity War.
And when you go back and look at the totality of the cinematic output in that universe, it's really only a few pictures that the entire franchise hangs its hat on. Like maybe the first Iron Man, the second Captain America Civil War, and then Infinity War. Maybe 4 movies that were legitimately really good, that everybody thought were really good, and there's a lot of fair to middling stuff in between there that kind of got elevated by the quality and the reputation of those particular 4. I think it's pretty easy to see that in hindsight, don't you think?
It is, and you don't expect it to have played out this way, even with everything that's happened in the real world. It seems like you should be able to spin a franchise into a profit somehow, right?
Yeah. Without bringing in 68 actors and spending $800 million on their salaries and dragging out all the X-Men from 25 years ago. Yeah.
About that time.
At that time. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks ever so much for joining us on this week's episode of Marvel Talk. Maybe we didn't plan on doing an entire hour and a half of Marvel Talk, but it sure was fun talking about that impending train wreck that's going to happen when the Marvel Express careens off the edge of Eastwood Ravine and crashes into the bottom of the gorge in a spectacular blaze of glory. Thanks ever so much for joining us. Have a pleasant tomorrow and an edifying Tuesday and a fantastic rest of your week. We will see you back here on next Sunday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Don't miss it. Take care. See you later. Get off my lawn.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?